Another tense, exhausting night has passed over Tel Aviv with warning sirens, flashes across the sky, and repeated interceptions, once again forcing families in central Israel into shelters. For many people here, this is no longer felt as a rare emergency that interrupts normal life and then disappears. It is starting to feel like a pattern, something that now sets the rhythm of daily life in one of Israel's most important urban centers. Across Tel Aviv and nearby districts, residents were jolted awake by alerts and moved quickly, sometimes repeatedly, into reinforced rooms and public shelters as air defenses activated overhead. The skyline carried the familiar crack and heavy thud of interceptions. And yet, as has happened in multiple recent waves, the defensive response did not prevent all damage on the ground. By morning, emergency crews were dealing with multiple impact scenes, damaged buildings, shattered glass, smoke and debris scattered across streets and residential areas. In some places, entrances were scorched and vehicles were burned out. In others, broken windows and torn away facade sections left streets dusted with fragments that looked in daylight like a storm of building material and metal. What makes this moment especially serious is the growing sense that it does not feel like a one-off incident. The repeated salvos now appear to be part of a wider, more dangerous phase of confrontation, one that has repeatedly reached major population centers, not only border communities or isolated strategic facilities. Over recent weeks, central Israel has faced recurring long-range missile and drone activity. There have been nights and days when residents have moved in and out of shelters more than once, measuring time not by routine, work, school, errands, but by the next alert and the next. The result is physical disruption, but also something harder to quantify, a creeping sense that normal life is steadily being replaced by a cycle of sirens, shelter, RU, NS, quick checks for damage and recovery, only to be repeated again. Through the night, firefighters, rescue teams, police units, and medical crews move from one location to another in a dense urban environment. That choreography matters in a city like Tel Aviv. Streets have to be secured fast. Structures have to be checked for instability, injuries have to be treated quickly, and teams have to make sure secondary dangers, fire, collapsing materials, exposed electrical lines, do not turn one strike site into something even worse. Hospitals shift posture in these moments, activating emergency protocols, keeping extra medical teams on standby, because the response is never only about what has already happened, it is also about what could happen next, especially when another wave is possible. Even after sirens stop, the danger may not be over. In dense cities, debris fields can remain hazardous. Unidentified fragments can land on roads, rooftops, courtyards, and parking areas. And incoming weapons include payloads that break apart, whether by design, by interception, or by impact, the risk becomes more complicated. Dangerous remnants can spread over a wider area and in some cases remain unstable. That is why the threat is no longer measured only by the moment of impact. It continues into the aftermath. Families stepping out of shelters may not know if their street is fully safe. Parents try to calm children in protected rooms while listening closely to the sounds outside, trying to judge whether the danger is fading or moving closer. Phones light up with messages from relatives and friends checking in. Are you okay? Is your building intact? Do you need somewhere to go? In a city living under repeated alerts, those simple questions carry enormous weight. And even in a place where sirens are not new, many residents say these recent nights feel different, longer, louder, more sustained. The psychological strain is becoming one of the most important parts of this story. Repeated disruptions, interrupted sleep, the constant expectation of another alert, the low-level fear that you could be back in a stairwell or shelter again within minutes. The story is no longer only about damaged buildings. It is also about how repeated alerts begin reshaping a city's routines and decisions. Schools adjust schedules and operating rules. Offices delay openings or keep staff remote longer than planned. Public spaces empty quickly. Transportation is interrupted, sometimes suddenly, sometimes repeatedly. People start making choices not around convenience, but around shelter access, where they can safely park, which store is closest to a protected space, which route keeps them near cover. Israeli officials continue to emphasize that air defense systems remain active and that many incoming threats are intercepted. That remains true, but recent events have also shown that scale and coordination matter. When launches arrive in waves or when mixed threats are used, together the pressure on defensive coverage increases. Analysts have long warned about the challenges of handling simultaneous layered attacks, ballistic missiles, drones, and varying flight profiles that complicate timing and decision-making. A defense system can be highly capable and still be tested by saturation, especially when multiple projectiles arrive in a tight window or when a barrage is designed to force hard choices about what to engage first. So this is not only a story about defense systems, It is also a story about saturation and endurance, about how much pressure civilian infrastructure can absorb and for how long. Tel Aviv is not just a population center, it is one of Israel's key financial, commercial, and technology hubs. Even limited disruption here can send wider ripple effects quickly. Roads may remain closed while teams clear hazards and assess damage. Buildings may need inspection before residents can return or businesses can reopen. Retail slows when PO plays stay home during repeated alerts. Employers face disruptions as staff are pulled away from meetings and commutes by sirens. And markets react not only to visible damage, but to uncertainty, because uncertainty itself changes behavior, investment, and momentum. On the ground, the emergency response remains intense and highly organized. Fire crews work to secure damaged sites and prevent secondary fires. Engineers assess structural risks in residential and commercial buildings, checking for cracks, instability, and signs that a facade could fall. Police and civil defense units seal off impact zones and restrict movement not only to protect the public, but to give specialized teams the space to operate. Disposal specialists are called when suspicious fragments are found, because in the aftermath of interceptions, what falls to the ground is not always harmless scrap. Some objects can still pose a danger: residual fuel, unexploded components, jagged materials that can injure people. Who approach out of curiosity or fear? Public instructions remain consistent: stay close to shelters, avoid debris, and report unusual objects immediately. In a dense city, even a single unexploded remnant can turn a recovery zone into an extended hazard area. That means the aftermath is not simply cleanup. It becomes part rescue effort, part engineering inspection, part controlled security response. In that sense, the danger does not always end when the sky goes quiet. At the same time, another side of the city becomes visible during nights like this. Neighbors check on neighbors. Volunteers move quickly with water, food, blankets, chargers, and basic supplies. Community spaces open for families displaced from damaged homes or for those waiting for clearance to return. Those scenes matter because they show that even under intense pressure, the city continues to function through local solidarity and fast civic response. In a period where stress accumulates night after night, that kind of community support becomes part of resilience, not a footnote to it. International concern is also rising as humanitarian groups and weapons experts focus attention on reports of cluster-style munitions and wide-area debris patterns. Their concern is not only immediate damage, it is the lingering risk created by scattered remnants after impact in heavily populated areas, danger that can persist long after the last siren, turning a short alert into a much longer public safety challenge. The central fear with wide area fragmentation is straightforward. People can survive the initial strike only to face hazards afterwards. Small, difficult to see remnants in streets and courtyards, unstable metal pieces on rooftops, fragments that can injure children or first responders days later. In a city where daily life depends on people moving back into public space quickly, that lingering risk forces slower, more cautious recovery. For now, Tel Aviv's priorities are straightforward, but urgent: protect civilians, clear hazards, restore essential services, and remain prepared for more incoming waves if they come. Residents are being urged to follow official instructions, avoid any debris, and stay close to protected areas while emergency teams move from immediate response into stabilization. But the larger takeaway is becoming harder to ignore. This is no longer being treated as a limited exchange. The confrontation is reaching major cities, testing defensive systems, disrupting normal life, and leaving lasting physical, emotional, and economic effects. And for Tel Aviv, another night of sirens and uncertainty is no longer seen as an exception. It is increasingly becoming part of a deeply unsettling reality, one where the city must keep functioning even as the pressure continues. There is also a strategic layer to what residents are living through, even if it is felt most sharply in the moment the siren begins. A city can handle a single dramatic incident. It can mobilize, repair, and return to normal. But repeated incidents create a different challenge: fatigue. Fatigue shows up in small decisions, people hesitating before going to work, parents recalculating whether it's safe to send children to school, routines narrowing to what feels safest, businesses delay decisions, events are postponed or quietly canceled, life becomes more limited, more cautious. And fatigue shows up in bigger ways too, in the demand placed on emergency services that must keep operating at high intensity, in the strain on public infrastructure that must remain resilient, and in the psychological toll of living with uncertainty that is not theoretical, but audible, announced by sirens, confirmed by explosions in the sky, and measured by shattered glass in the morning. In recent weeks, the pattern has reinforced a sobering truth: interception is not the same as immunity. Air defense can reduce casualties and damage dramatically. But when volume is high enough, or when, Attacks are designed to complicate response. Some impacts may still occur and fragments may still fall. That means the public experience becomes layered. There is relief at the sound of interceptions overhead, followed by caution because debris can still land and because another alert could arrive before the current one has fully faded. It also changes the city's sense of time. A night like this is not just one night. It becomes part of a sequence. People wake up and think not only about what happened, but what it suggests, whether the next wave will come tonight, tomorrow, or within hours. Even when streets are cleared and services return, the atmosphere does not fully reset. People remain on edge. Businesses reopen cautiously. Families measure each hour by the possibility of another alert. That lingering tension is what makes these repeated nights so significant. Buildings can be repaired, roads can reopen, smoke can clear, but the deeper effect is the gradual reshaping of everyday life under constant uncertainty. And that may prove to be the most lasting consequence of all.